it's given me this ability to really decide how I wanted to show up for myself. Did I want this grief of my son to define me as a man, as a husband, as a father of my living children? Or did I really want the grief to shape me, who I wanted to be? I remember my dad telling me that my grandparents, his parents, lost their twins when they were very young. It always made me wonder how they felt. What grief did they go through? And they were living at a time and an era where, especially the men, didn't really express themselves in that way. And my grandfather was no exception. So it always made me wonder, how did the family manage it? And naturally, there was a sadness there when my father was telling the story. And so it always made me wonder about this event that took place in their life. Fast forward to the 27th of April 2005, the day I lost Hashim, my own son, and my world collapsed. Everything around me was crashing. I remember the heaviness and the feeling of complete and utter loss in my heart, on my chest, and the constant repetition of all the things that I had planned with my son, constantly reminding me of the loss and the pain, the loss of joy. And it's taken me nearly 2 decades to really grasp this idea of grief and how grief potentially defines people. And it's allowed me to understand how my grandparents felt when they lost the two twins, their twin sons. And I never thought, when I was listening to that story, that I would be going through the same loss in my life. And it's a loss of a lifetime of happiness, a lifetime of anniversaries and birthdays, and just watching your child grow up. And it's given me this ability to really decide how I wanted to show up for myself. Did I want this grief of my son to define me as a man, as a husband, as a father of my living children? Or did I really want the grief to shape me, who I wanted to be? And it's taken me some time to understand the difference between defining and shaping. And when I allowed grief to shape me, a lot of it was about acceptance. A lot of it was about accepting the grief and then embracing it and seeing the loss of my son, the grief of my son, as love. It's a form of expression for me to be able to express that. And 20 years have passed, and I'm in a place now where I can finally do something worthwhile with that love, with that grief for Hashim. And it goes back to the promise that I had originally made to him and to myself on that fateful day, the 27th of April, which actually is only 5 days away. It'll be 21 years as I'm recording this video. What I ultimately wanted was to create a safe space for fathers to be able to set their grief down. It's something that I struggled with for a very, very long time. I couldn't find either the space or the safety to be able to talk to another dad who was grieving, who had gone through the same experience as I had. At the time, there was very limited support. My life has opened up this space for me to be able to create this community, which I call SDF, Still Dad Fathers. And it's a space where dads can meet other dads and share their grief without any judgment, without explaining themselves about their grief, and where they are heard, seen, validated, and acknowledged for who they are as men, as dads. And so, if you are struggling with the grief of your child, whether it's a few weeks in after the loss, or a few months, or a few years, because ultimately grief never goes away. You never move on, as people have probably asked you to do, and all coming from a space of care to move on because they want you to have a life. But the reality is, you can never go back to that life that you had. It's something that I tried for many, many years, to recreate that feeling of lightness, to forget my son. And I realized that I didn't want to forget my son. I realized I didn't want to lose the ache of his loss. So if you find yourself in a similar situation, I want to share with you something that will potentially start you on the road of moving with your grief. And this is a really important concept that I want to talk about, is the ability to be able to move with your grief, not move on from your grief. And so I'm going to share a link that has two tools that will allow you to be able to start your journey. Number one is a free 20-minute webinar. It's something that I take with other dads, and it's a writing experience of how to manage your grief. And it's just a taster. It's a 20-minute webinar. It's free and allows you, through the process of writing, to help articulate and give your grief a voice, a language, and to honor your child. So that's number one. Number two, I want to share a document that you may want to share with friends and family, with your colleagues perhaps, on how to start a conversation with a grieving father. And to me, it's a really important document, because I remember being triggered by the smallest of questions that people used to ask me, on, especially those who knew me and knew what I was going through. They would ask, for example, "How are you doing?" And I would turn around and say, "Well, how do you think I'm doing?" You know, and a lot of these times I'm having this internal conversation. I'm not even responding to them and asking them, "Well, how do you think I'm doing?" I would turn around and say that I'm doing fine. So it's a document that has 10 questions that you shouldn't ask, and 10 that you should ask instead. And it would be good if you can download it and share it with friends and family and colleagues, and say, "Look, it's a really sensitive time for me. Here's a document that'll help you when you approach me and you don't know where to start or what to say." It's a great document to pass on to them, and it gives them insights on suggestions how to be able to start a conversation with yourself.